What's up, everyone? It's the interview queen Alicia Toot here, and be sure to watch True Heel Heat.
This is M-Dog20, Matt Cross, and you are listening to True Heel Heat.
You already know what time it is, man. The young goat in the building. Make sure you tune in to True Heel Heat podcast.
Alright, this is Dennis here, very nice for evil. You are watching True Heel Heat. Probably should have had MJF do this, but here we are.
This is the knockout artist, Chris Hero. And if you're looking for some true heel heat, you better listen to them boys.
Hello. It is me, your True Heel Phenom, SP3. We are live on the True Heel Heat YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter for the return of our Dark Side of the Ring reviews for Season 5, Episodes 1 and 2, The Ballad of Earthquake John Tenta, and Buff and the Bagwells. Of course, I am joined by the princess of all the True Heels, my co-host for all of the Dark Side of the Ring reviews on the True Heel Heat YouTube channel, Miss Krssi Love.
What's going on, SP? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, everybody. We're back for another season. So excited to be here. We got some episodes to talk about.
Back by popular demand as well.
Right.
We've had people in the live chats for different shows asking about, are we coming back with the Dark Side of the Ring reviews?
Really?
I see Pastor Cody, some of our new subscribers who haven't been here over the past couple of years, and we're like, sweet, did you just start doing this? No, we've been doing these Dark Side of the Ring reviews since Season 2, but we have reviewed every single episode.
Season, yep.
Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, and now we're back for Season 5.
So this is good. Well, yes, go back and rewatch. If you have not watched any of the other episodes, go watch our reviews. They're great. They're in the chambers. They're in the vault on our True Heel Heat page.
Absolutely. Take a look at the vault. We got the entire playlist on the True Heel Heat YouTube channel, and you can check it out in the playlist section. We got Steven Chambers here with us. Guys, sound off in the live chat. We love to interact with all of you. Highlight your comments on screen. But of course, if you're feeling generous, you want to give back to what we do here, you can do so with a super chat donation. Any dollar amount matters. It shows your support to what we do here on the True Heel Heat YouTube channel, and we will give you our thoughts on what you have to say on both of these episodes. But We got season 5, episode 1. We're starting off with the Ballad of Earthquake John Tenta. Krssi Love, you know how we start these episodes. What was kind of your knowledge or memories of Earthquake John Tenta before you watched this episode here?
I just remember him being a big guy, and he would smash you, and you don't want to be underneath that because it looks like it hurts really, really badly. And I remember jumping around them to get them ready. I guess to I don't know, not keep them down or whatever, so they wouldn't get up. Or just I feel like an earthquake, and he was an earthquake. So yeah.
He was shaking the ring. I
Yes.
remember that. The jumping up and down. I remember his feud with Hulk Hogan was one of my earliest memories of being a wrestling fan. So I was excited for one of kind of my old school first heels that I remember from WWF era.
Yes.
So this episode starts off with basically we see a whole preview and the still shots of what we're going to be talking about and a bunch of the talking heads. We also realized that this is going to be a little bit of the story of Fred Ottman because we see clips of the Shockmaster, which I just feel they just wanted to make fun of Fred Ottman.
I think so, because I was like, I thought this was about Earthquake, and we're making it about both of them. So you could have did both adjoining Dark Side of the Ring, but I don't really feel like this was a Dark Side of the Ring. I don't really feel like
it just felt like a comedy interlude when we talked about the Shockmaster.
He got sick. He wasn't he didn't get addicted to anything or I don't know. I just felt like
Fred. I'm talking about Fred Ottman with the Shockmaster. He's alive. He was one of the talking heads.
I know he was one of the talking. No, I'm just talking about the episode itself as an earthquake. I was I don't really see anything as the dark side of this episode.
Oh no, this was more of just a sad episode.
It was
one of
sad.
Those
Exactly.
Ones instead of dark side.
Yeah, he had to sell shoes and he worked at the mall, but that's about it though. I didn't see that this was a dark. I thought this was a really sad episode, and I was I wanted to make fun of Fred because he had to wear that stupid outfit. But this is not about Fred. This is and who looks great, by the way. I barely recognized him, but yeah, I was like, why are we talking about Fred? This is about the earthquake.
You know, sad side of the ring doesn't have the same ring to it. We start off with the introduction of Earthquake in WWF. We see the push-up contest between Dino Bravo and the Ultimate Warrior. Jimmy Hart picks a massive fan out of the crowd to sit on the back of both men as they did their push-ups. The crowd was pointing at John because he was obviously a plant in the crowd. Hey. John then smashes the Ultimate Warrior, and we have a new monster heel is born. We meet one of John's sons, Jeff, and he says that everyone knew him as Little Quake, and we see pictures of him as a kid with Hulk Hogan, Big Boss Man, and Tugboat. He knows his dad was respected, and if his dad told someone to keep an eye on his kid, they would do it. Next, we would meet Joanna Tenta. No, Joanna is actually his daughter.
Right.
I call her Miss. We have Mrs. Earthquake and then Miss Earthquake is the daughter, Joanna Tenta, and we see pictures of her with Edge and Gangrel and with Luna, and we also see she talks about how cool it was to walk backstage and see these wrestlers outside of their characters. We then meet John's youngest son, who is John Tenta Jr.
Yes.
He says that he didn't want to be a wrestler, but he loves wrestling to this day. John grew up in British Columbia and knew he wanted to be a wrestler at a young age, and he used to watch it with his father, and they used to watch it on TV all the time. They weren't rich, but had a big belief in their son and did what they could to support his dreams. He started playing sports and became a big-time amateur wrestler and was getting offers for universities in the U.S. He went to LSU, but then dropped out their wrestling program. John decided that he wanted to become a sumo wrestler. Which I was like, okay.
How cool. And I was like, this is so cool though. Look at that.
That was dope. I was wondering because I always heard stuff about it and
Mhm.
I never seen the picture, so that was very cool that they had
Yeah.
this.
Mhm.
He started at 22 years old and he was recruited while in LSU and quit college to become a sumo wrestler in Japan. We meet Fumi Saito, which got me the biggest pop of this
Yeah.
episode for me because as someone that is an aspiring wrestling historian, I've always heard the stories of Saito, who is the
Mhm.
well-known Japanese wrestling historian, journalist, and author. He notes sumo is a national sport in Japan, and then we see one of our first wrestlers joining us on the cast here,
Looks
as it
great.
is none other than Haku. He says, "Go what we have." He says, "I promise." He says, the differences between pro wrestling and sumo, and he explains it how they're two different type of things, and that John wanted to get into professional wrestling, but they were looking at John to be a grand champion. He went undefeated for 8 months and decided to walk away from it all because he couldn't live with the lifestyle, and his
Mhm.
dream was always to be a pro wrestler. He signed with All Japan Pro Wrestling, and we get this great picture with him and Giant Baba, which is the All Japan founder and legendary wrestler. We see a photo with him, and then we see cool footage of a rather thin John
Mhm.
Tenta working in Japan to start off his professional wrestling career. We then finally meet Josephine Tenta next, who is John's wife. And in a very sweet moment, we meet her and she starts singing about her love for John. She is from the Philippines and went to Japan on a visa to be a singer and entertainer. And she says that it was love at first sight. And she admits that she knew nothing about wrestling, and they discuss the height difference between her and John, as John was 6'7" and she was 4'11, but that didn't bother her.
Yeah.
What did you think about? I thought she was the sweetest
Ah,
lady.
I was like, oh, this. I see where this story is going. As soon as they showed her and then they showed him, I was like, oh god, here we go. Bring the tissues. Okay, great guys, thanks. But yeah, she's just the sweetest, and I just like, oh, just a love story. And it was like love at first sight, and they started singing with each other. I was like, oh, he was a singer. I was like, look at that. Well, I guess with her, you could
Yeah,
say anything.
it make you sing. You see the
Yeah,
person you love and make you sing.
yeah.
Jeff, the son, the oldest son, says not to get it twisted, as his mom was the alpha in the house, despite being the shorter of the two.
See
Joanna talks.
that?
Joanna talks about their love story and how amazing it is that they found each other.
That's such a pretty
Josephine.
picture.
Yeah, I love this picture that they took. Josephine knew right away he was a good man with a good heart. And Fumi Saito then talks about his career again, talking about how the WWE was looking at John only a year after his All Japan debut, and they wanted him to be an opponent for Hulk Hogan. John asked those in All Japan if it was okay if he left to join WWE, and the Great Kabuki gave him his blessing.
Mhm.
It seems Jeff is of not the biological son of John, and they talk about that, how
Mhm.
he is the biological son of Josephine, and John knew Josephine and Jeff were a package deal, and Jeff says John is the only father he knows. He says that is my dad, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's so
Yeah. See? Again, the tissues. I was like, see, they know what they're doing with their first episode. You want us to cry and be all sad and shit. Like this. I was like, all right, here we go. I was like, oh, he was a good man. Like he just did took in this lady and her child and was like, no, this is gonna be my son. Like that's big for someone, like it's a lot to accept of someone. It's a package deal. Like,
yeah. Yeah, when you meet someone, you fall in love with someone, and they have a kid, you got to know you're gonna fall in love with the kid as well.
yep.
It's all the same thing. So
Hmm.
I respect him for that.
Yep.
We jump to the money making feud against Hulk Hogan. That gives us Earl Hebner as a talking head, who he talks about how it meant to work with Hogan at that time. He calls John a special friend. We
Hmm.
then see one of the all time greats, Jake the Snake Roberts, is next, and he says that John was a rookie, but he took it all in, and like he had been wrestling for years. He says wrestling Hogan is the spot that everyone wants. They
Wanted.
discuss how great of a heel John was, and they aren't lying because the Hogan and Earthquake feud, a lot of people
Yeah.
talk about, is like a legendary feud that made a lot of money on the house shows and
Mm-hmm.
across like the world for WWF at that time. So much so that Hogan didn't want to blow it off at SummerSlam, as they knew that it had more legs on the loop. The first wrestling, I think like they had like a wrestling show back in like 91. Like they pushed like multiple months. I think it was only supposed to be like a 3-month program, and it went like 6 months because it was making so much money for the WWF at the time. We jumped to WWF SWS WrestleFest 91 in the Tokyo Dome. Fumi says that it was the biggest match for John, and he was paired up with Koji Kaito. And I knew as soon as they brought this up with Koji Kaito, I was like, oh, I've heard this story before.
I didn't hear this story before, so this was exciting to hear. So I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. Cool.
So it seems that they had some beef going back to sumo, and Haku notes that Kaito thought that he was Bruce Lee or some shit like that. And we get footage from the matchup. Earthquake pins the former Yokozuna grand champion. So even though he wasn't able to become a grand champion, he pinned one in professional wrestling. They wrestled the next night, and Earthquake was supposed to win again, but Kaito wasn't having it. He went for Earthquake's eyes with a poke. So Tenta started throwing legit kicks. We see him like he's coming up with the eyes, and he just legit kicks the shit out of it. Kaito had enough.
He was pissed.
Kaito had enough. He got disqualified. He told the crowd everything was fake and walked out. He got booed out the building. Tenta was pissed and looked for Kaito in the back. Kaito was fired the next day. Haku notes that John was very quiet, and those are the guys you need to watch. Haku is and you gotta understand, it's fucking Haku that's saying this.
You're right.
Haku, one of the most known fighters and brawlers, and the person no one wants to fucking fight in wrestling.
Yeah, Haku
said that.
Yeah,
he's like, you gotta watch that Earthquake. He's the one you gotta watch. I can only imagine him saying that. Ballad B is in the chat joining us. Thanks for joining us here. We got Stephen Chambers saying West Virginia Earthquake in the crowd. Yes, indeed. We got Ballad B saying that's my quake, and says biggest, sweetest dogs. Jacob the Scallop. Oh, okay.
I don't know.
I'm confused. But next, we get John Tenta is viewed as a true pro after what happened in Japan, and he basically starts to get a reputation, and that gives him some respect with the boys back in the WWF. Jeff says that his dad loved being the bad guy, and that leads to his feud with Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake talks about his gimmick about the putting the snake on his opponents, and after the match, and much like Savage letting the Cobra bite him, this is another wrestling moment that is like in childhood memories and infamy. So the idea was for Earthquake to kill Damien. So they wanted Quaker to jump on the snake while Jake was out cold. But I love Jake explaining it. He's like, no, that's not good enough. He says it would mean more to have me tied up in the ropes and make me watch it. And this is why Jake the Snake Roberts is one of the best psychology workers of all time. He understands what's going to get the most emotion from the fans.
That's one thing you just gotta love about Jake. Like, he knows the craft, and he knows what's going to like get a reaction from people. So put a cobra on my arm. Sure, let it bite me. Tie me up. Like, kill Damien. Sure. Like, go right ahead.
So everyone in all the talking heads are like talking about, even his son, John Tenta Jr. is like, and he's like Academy Award winning performance by Jake's acting ability as he sells his snake getting squashed. He let us know that when he opened up the bag, he sells it like, oh my God, what happened to my snake? But he says that it was a pantyhose full of hamburger meat. He says we got some letters over it as it traumatized some kids. He says it's wrestling. Get over it. I love Jake the Snake Roberts. This is what I want to say to a lot of fucking people, you Maxine Dupree fans.
Oh, we're not gonna do that because I mean they're pushing it. Now they want to just throw it at us, but that's another story. We'll talk about that on True Heat tomorrow.
Tomorrow, Quake then serves Bobby the Brain Heenan and Vince McMahon Quake burgers on prime time, WWF prime time. And one guess what the burgers were made out of, and he says he's that not he was an awesome heel. He was just an awesome.
He was.
heel.
He really he did his job. He understood his assignment always.
We get Vince cursing him out and throwing the tray of burgers on the ground. And then we transition into his tag team run and we introduce Fred Ottman. And he even says that he is the Shockmaster and one half of the Natural Disasters. He gives us a brief history of his career, including breaking a boombox over Rocky Johnson's head after a rap battle, dance battle. He was known as Big Bubba. Then we get Jerry Sags of the Nasty Boys, who says that Fred didn't know his own strength, and he says that he cracked open Rocky's head with that boombox. Fred was brought into the WWF as Tugboat, a friend of Hulk Hogan. They gloss over that and jump to his pairing with Earthquake. And they talk about how the Natural Disasters were born. They wrestled the Jerry Sags talks about how the Nasty Boys wrestled the Natural Disasters a lot, and you had to change your style. Fred did his strong man stuff, while Quake could work with anyone. The Disasters become the tag team champions, and they discuss the crazy road schedule for the WWF. Josephine expected John to be home more than he was, but she was new to the U.S. and was alone a lot. And Joanna talks about how she didn't see a lot of her dad, and she was used to this small woman. So when her dad came home, she was scared of him. But she knows that likely broke his heart. But Jake takes a shot at the schedule and blames Vince McMahon for it. So of course, I love that. I love when Jake takes a shot at Vince McMahon. It's awesome.
Always. Any opportunity he can get, he will do that.
So you're the bad thing. Look at that smile. Fred showing off some of the Natural Disaster action figures, and John and Fred weren't partiers and drinkers. They would stay in their hotel room and talk about family life and laugh and about stupid things others were doing. What they would do though is eat a crap ton of food. Of course,
that's how they were so big. Like, what do you mean?
The Natural Disasters for a reason.
Didn't have a Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi.
In 1993, John Tenta returns to Japan. We get old audio of John saying that he was always impatient in his career and didn't want to be pushed into the background. Fred stayed in the WWF and had to come home when tragedy hit. His brother-in-law ran Fred's bar in Key West while he was on the road, and Fred is talking to Randy on the phone, and he can hear Randy put down the phone to break up a fight, and someone shoots Randy, killing him instantly. Fred had to come home and off the road for his family. John's work schedule in Japan kept him away from home even more than usual, and it led to a blow up between the two. And of course, that really sucks. Then we get Fred making the move over to WCW and the Shockmaster. Fred has always had a great sense of humor about the whole ordeal, though. So it's the Flair for Gold. And the idea is Fred is Sting and British Bulldog's mystery partner against Sid and the Harlem Heat at War Games at the Fall Brawl. Fred was supposed to break through the wall while wearing a stormtrooper's helmet with glittery stuff on it, glitter all over
everywhere.
Fred says the holes to see were about the size of a pinhole, and they didn't gimmick the wall. Oh, poor guy. They told Fred he would have to hit the wall hard, so that's what he did. They show the debut to Haku and to Jake the Snake Roberts, and they can't help but laugh their ass off. Haku's laugh, I mean, it's something that Dark Side of the Ring knew was a gold segment, that they posted it on their social media a full week before the episode debuted, because it's something that Haku's family has noted on social media. They love, like, his laugh. There's so much joy when he's looking at this video of Fred and him describing. He said he said to find the gimmick, and he's swimming and he's swimming and he's
and he said he never saw it though.
He's describing it as he's watching it. That was awesome. And then he even broke the producers. The producers
Yeah.
had to laugh out of
Laugh,
his laugh.
yep. And he's like, you guys want to see? He was like, okay, sure. And he's like, all right. Then they show it to him, and he just was like, wait, what? And he just was like, he was laughing hysterical. It was like, that's the side of wrestlers you want to see, like that side, like the human, like the humorous side of them. Like they're just not wrestlers. They have like, they're human beings too. Like, so that was actually a really, really fun. I know, like you said, they probably just wanted to make fun of him. Poor thing.
He was there and he played along with it. So that's great. The Shockmaster falls coming through the wall and the helmet comes off. Sags mentions that Ole Anderson had his voice distorted and was reading the lines backstage for Shockmaster. Forget that though, as Haku is still laughing at this point. And he tells Fred, I still love you. I never seen that shit before. he's oh my god, it's an all-timer reaction
Yes,
on
it
Dark
is.
Side of the Ring.
Mhm.
Sag notes Fred could save a bus full of children and he would still be known for the Shockmaster. It's funny as shit. And back to Haku, who is still laughing and now breaking the producer at this point. Like, then we finally get a commercial. We go to the next thing where they have more audio of John, who talks about he wasn't pleased with the finances in WWF, so he called WCW. They gave him a big contract with less days on the road. Good deal. So he went and did it. It's like AEW. The family moved to Florida, and John was at home more. We learned John loved karaoke, and he was all about making memories with the family once he had more time at home. And he showed up to whatever he could, and it helped his family life. Vince owned the earthquake gimmick, so unfortunately, he had to change his name to Avalanche in WCW. But that didn't last too long. It was too close to Earthquake. So then he joins the Dungeon of Doom and he becomes the Shark. And I mean, we have Jerry Sags who says that was fucking stupid. Were you watching
Right, like
WCW at this time and saw all of this?
I don't remember seeing this, but bless you. Um, no, I don't remember seeing this part at that time because I didn't have like the cable. Remember, because if you had like cable, that's where you watched it on like WCW. So I didn't have that at that time. So I didn't get to see it until like late 90s.
It's funny because when I was doing my watching for True Rewind, when we were
Mhm.
doing True Rewind here or on Fightful Overbook, and I would watch OWCW, and my missus saw John Tenta in WCW, and she was like, "Oh my god, that's where Earthquake went." She had never she was full on
I never see
WWF
right,
through and
right.
through. So like watching all the old WCW is one of her best
The
things
early one, yeah.
because she's never watched any of it.
See, I would definitely have to be one of those to have to watch them over because I didn't watch to like 95, 96 ish. Like when we started, like that's when we had got cable. That's when my mom got cable. We could watch both of them back to back with no issues. So yeah, I missed that whole like avalanche shark bit or whatever. Even like the whole like the gimmick with that the star, what is it, what was his name,
Shockmaster.
the shock master. I didn't see any of that stuff, so
I didn't
yeah.
see Shockmaster live, but I've seen it so many times. It's like it haunts me in my dreams. He talks about the shark gimmick and he says that I'm not a fish, and apparently he hated the gimmick. He then changes,
Wouldn't you?
of course.
And he had to draw. He drew the foolishness all on his face. Poor thing.
He
But
then
anything like you got to do for your family. You got to do it. So
absolutely, it's a check.
it's a
He
check.
then
Yeah.
He then changes his name to his real name, John Tenta. We see the promo where he says, I'm not a fish. And Jake says that John was never put in a position to make money in WCW. John returns to the WWF in 1998. And you think, oh, it's a glorious return. He could be Earthquake again. They own the name. Everything's fine. Nope. They put him in a t-shirt, put him in a mask, had him hold a Gartman doll all the time. And he was a member of the Oddities.
I remember now that I remember not knowing who it was, but I remember that faction. I remember all of that.
I remember at the time. I remember it had to be like 2000. It was probably by the
Yeah.
time the Oddities were
Mhm.
already done. And I
Mhm.
found
Mhm.
out that that was John Tenta. And I was like, holy shit, they had Earthquake this whole time and they put him in a mask.
That's the
Uh,
sad part. I mean, I guess you couldn't use the earthquake gimmick and that era, or but I mean, like Give him I don't know. They could have did a different name, but they covered his face. Poor thing.
We got Jake who says that it was very embarrassing to put John under a mask. Justin says that everyone wanted Earthquake back. John left WWF and opened a wrestling school, but that didn't work for him as the family went into bankruptcy. John then got a job working in the men's big and tall store in the mall. And John talks about going from working with Hulk Hogan to working retail. Hebner says John would shovel shit if it meant making money for his family. He then got a job as a truck driver and noticed that he had blood clots in his urine and he was on the road, so he kept it a secret from everyone. And eventually he went to a doctor and found out that he had a tumor in his bladder, but he waited too long and it was too advanced, and the tumor was the size of a baseball.
Sad. That's sad. Like, if you didn't wait and say anything, it could have been prevented. But you don't know what you don't know.
Sad, because you know the relationship he had with his family by this point of the episode. You're like, oh dear, here we go.
Right, here we go. He started off.
John and Josephine break the news to their kids. Joanne works in healthcare and told her brother bladder cancer is one of the most curable. John waited too long as he was on the road. My father, he talks about that. We get Justin who talks about John thought that if he was still wrestling, they may have caught his cancer earlier. John Jr. says that he caught his dad watching old tapes and reciting promos from the Snake Burger promo and like laughing and joking about it. Haku wishes John would have told him he needed help, and the family talks about how John didn't let a lot of people know in wrestling what was going on with him. John was looking okay in 2005, and there were hopes he could beat it. Jeff was going to get married in June, and just before John is told the cancer is back, Josephine and John decided not to tell the kids. They discussed the wedding, and there was a karaoke machine there, and Josephine started singing to John, and she broke down and started crying. She talks about her love for John, and Jeff says at that point they figured it was game over for their dad. Damn. So
that was sad. I was like, that at the wedding, damn. I was like, this is supposed to be something joyous, and I guess the mom couldn't hold it any longer because that's a secret. That's like it's a lot to hold in, and it's like
on her.
It was weighing down on her, and it's like I don't want you to go, but I know it will happen, and I don't know when it will happen. So I have to kind of like come to the realization that like this is going to happen.
Yes. We got Trey Jones in the chat joining us. Thanks for joining us, Trey Jones. We got
Trey.
Valabi, who says, when I think of Shockmaster, I think of Cody Rhodes' reaction to the debut. He says, that's Uncle Fred. Yes. Yeah, there's a clip of Dusty telling that story. I think they've had it on
really?
WWE before and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, I gotta go find that clip and see it.
So the cancer has spread throughout John's body, but they don't tell the children at first. Josephine breaks down as she goes over how she told John that her and the kids would be okay and he could go if it was time. One by one, he said goodbye to his kids in the hospital, each kid going over what they told their father and break down. This was like the most heartbreaking part of this whole story. We get the John Jr. had the saddest story when he talks about how like every time he was across the room from his dad, it didn't matter. He said my dad loved to laugh. He said every time he was across the room from me, he would wink and we would both start laughing. And he says that all my siblings, said their piece to him, and he said something to them, and then when it was my turn to come up, he just winks at me, and he said he started breaking down. He says he said he locked eyes with each of his kids and held his daughter's hand as he passed away on June 7, 2006, a few weeks before his 43rd birthday and a few months before the birth of his first grandkid. Sad said that he got the call from Fred, and that call happened too many times for guys in their era.
Mm-hmm.
Jake says that it was horrible as he was a sweet man. No wrestlers, though, showed up at the funeral. And there were no flowers from the WWF because, once again, Dark Side of the Ring's motto, this man sucks. Jeff wishes they would have...
Also, It's not. I think it's something where he didn't really tell anyone. Also, so it's like, well, how would
WWF has their ways. WWF has their ways. They could have found out if they wanted to.
Okay, you're right.
That's saying. That's saying. Jeff wishes they would have tried harder to show his dad more love. Haku says that he will always remember John as that he was his sumo brother. Joanna says she stopped watching wrestling for years, but recently she started watching her father's matches and seeing how good he was. Fred puts John over as a legend and says, "I love you, brother." Josephine says John is her soulmate. As we see her and her children looking at photos, we see the first photo John and Josephine took together once again, and with something John wrote on the back, she reads it and breaks down talking about it.
Yeah.
John says that his dad was many things to many different people, but to them, he was just a great dad.
Yeah. Solid episode. Sad, but solid episode.
Sad side of the ring is back. There was no darkness to this one, but it was
none whatsoever.
It was definitely sad to see, him getting sick and the relationship that he had with his family and having to be away from them, but then eventually getting time with them, and then cancer. Cancer sucks.
Cancer. Fuck you, cancer.
Fuck you, cancer. Eat a dick.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I agree with you. A solid episode. We got in the chat Stephen Chambers saying mind-boggling, no wrestlers or no flowers for him at the funeral. I mean, the WWF, I'm not surprised.
I mean, I was just about to say, like, certain things we kind of already like know, we're not really surprised at.
So let's put our thumbs in the middle for the Ballad of Earthquake John Tenta, Season 5, Episode 1, in 3, 2, 1. Thumbs up across the board from both of us here. Krssi Love, out of 10, what did you give the show?
I give it an 8.
I'm going to go with a solid 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10, because it wasn't really Dark Side of the Ring. It was Sad Side of the Ring.
It was Sad Side of the Ring. So,
but it was cool to learn more about like one of the childhood heroes or childhood big wrestlers that I remember.
Yes, and learn his life and see that he was a big, gentle teddy bear.
MVP,
his wife, and Haku.
Josephine and Haku. Josephine and Haku, strictly for his reaction to the Shockmaster. LVP, Vince McMahon.
Yeah, Vince McMahon.
That's usually who the LVP is.
And the people at WCW for making him be a shark.
Yes, and Eric Bischoff.
Eric Bischoff. There you go. Yeah. So 2. Yeah, 2 and 2.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. All right. Well, we're moving on to Season 5, Episode 2, Buff and the Bagwells. And boy, oh boy.
This goes up there with the top one, Joe. This is a good one.
We got Dark Side of the Ring, and we got Wild Side of the Ring with Buff Bagwell here. We see current Buff starting us off on the show. He looks good.
Great. For the guys for the older guys from back then, he looks better than a lot. He looks better than Shawn Michaels.
You're telling me. Mark is
and Shawn had all right, sorry, just go ahead.
They both had a lot of drug use. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. So I'm like, what happened?
Marcus Bagwell, he's shooting this and showing us his mother's office that is filled with pictures and magazine covers of his wrestling career. He says that this is all because of Judy Bagwell and her drive. And we would hear a lot about Judy Bagwell. I meant to ask before we get more into the episode, just given the intro part of this, and more people can give their comments on what they thought about the Earthquake episode, what they thought about this Buff episode, and of course, feeling generous, you can send a super chat donation, guys. It's also important to what we do here. Every dollar amount matters, and it goes back to the contributors that you see on screen with us here. But you said, before with Earthquake, you were mainly like a WWF fan. You didn't start like flipping back and forth till like 96, 97 or so. What was your knowledge of Marcus Alexander Bagwell, aka Buff Bagwell, heading into this episode?
So I definitely know who Buff Bagwell was, NWL from the gate. But I do, once I did start, I remember him being in the cheesy. I remember him being with the guy. Was it what's his name? He was in the episode, the black dude.
Tuco Sorpio?
There you go. Yes. I do remember that.
Oh,
I do remember seeing him, and I do remember seeing him and that was only from being like at other people's houses, seeing, oh, you got cable and we watching wrestling. That's how I saw it.
I love that. And yes, DDP Yoga does magical things. Wrestling Lowdown Show. DDP, a miracle worker.
He's a miracle. He's doing God's work. Yes.
So Buff says that his family was told from a young age that they were special and would be somebody. He was an all-county football and baseball player, and we meet his father, Steve, which, I mean... Steve Bagwell.
Steve,
Marcus,
man.
was the youngest of 3 sons, and his dad was his dad says that he was the slowest to develop. Marcus says that his dad was a famous drag racer and a self-made millionaire. We see photos and press clippings of Steve as a drag racer, and it notes that he became an owner of a drag racing team, and they mentioned wrestling was on their TV growing up all the time, but there was never any inkling of they can actually make money in this business. Then we meet who arguably is, I will say, a contender for MVP of this episode.
Yep.
Family friend, Mark Slick Johnson, former WCW and TNA referee. He says that the Bagwell family was famous in their town and they owned Southeast Lumber. And everyone got their lumber there, and Slick has known Marcus since he was 18 years old. Next, we meet Tanya Bagwell, which is the first wife of Marcus. They meet when they were both 18 years old and immediately hit it off. She says Marcus is a loving person. Slick goes over all the things the family had: pool, tennis court, big house, movie theater in their home.
So they had the house that all the kids wanted to go to, basically.
Absolutely. That's we want to be Marcus' friend. You want to be his Marcus' friend.
You want to go to their house after school or during the summers. Let's go to Marcus' house.
Steve bought Marcus a Corvette when he was only 15 years old. Marcus notes that they were spoiled rotten, but they weren't spoiled brats as their parents didn't let them get away with anything. Steve says that he wanted his kids to have the things he didn't have. But Marcus says if you did anything wrong, you got your ass whipped. He says that his dad whipped him once, but his mom did it 1,000 times. And Slick simply says, Slick had the best one line. He's like, you don't fuck with Judy Bagwell. Nope. She said she ran the company that had over 100 employees and everyone knew she was in charge. They talk about Steve being the calmer of the two unless he lost a bet. And here we have one of the first crazy stories of this whole shit. So Slick tells a story about how Steve lost a bet and he pulls out a machine gun out of his cabinet, unloads a fucking clip on a bunch of geese outside of his yard, out of anger. Steve says that it's a true story and laughs about it.
Like, what?
Why did you kill geese, sir?
Right.
You killed animals for no reason because you lost a bet. Are you a child?
It was not even a bet, it was a poker game, I think it was.
Oh yeah, you lost a poker game. But like this is a child's response. I'm gonna shoot geese. We get more great parroting from Steve as we talk about Marcus and his friends going out, and he asks them, "Oh, we're gonna have some fun tonight," and Steve pulls out 5 bags of cocaine and hands it to them and says, "Have fun tonight, but stay out of trouble." I love how Slick said it. Have fun tonight, but stay out of trouble.
And he was like, I'd rather them get it from me than buy it from somebody else. At least they know who they're getting it from. And they know it's not going to be nothing. But yeah, father of the year, absolutely. But yeah, he was like, I'd rather give it to them than like them buy it from someone else and get arrested or whatever. At least they have it and they'll be fine. Yes and no, Dad. Right? Like,
hey, I've heard of parents smoking weed with their kids. I think that's perfectly fine. I smoked weed with my nephew. I was like, you're gonna smoke it with me because I know you're gonna get high and I know you're gonna be safe.
Now that I will agree with you on that, SP. I did say, like, for me, as like drinking and all that stuff, I'd rather show my kids and tell them before they're outside and they don't understand
Mm-hmm.
it. I did, and I went through a whole plethora of like things that I did not even like know. Like my mom didn't tell. Like no one teaches you this stuff.
No.
And no one didn't teach them. So it's like I'd rather at least tell them and explain it to them. Like this is the dark. This is you don't mix. If you want to mix, that's up to you. But like
But like my parents didn't even explain to me. My stepdad would be having a beer, like 3 to 4 beers a day. Like he'd drink it right in front of me. He would close his door, and then the room would start smelling funny. So he'd be smoking weed in there. And one day I was just trying to get back at him. I stole a cigarette from him, and I thought it was a cigarette, but it was not.
Oh,
and my life has never been the same ever since.
SP, wow.
I was like 13. I was like 13.
Yeah.
He had
No,
them
it
all
was
rolled
regular
up into white. All I knew was a
white.
13-year-old kid. I was like, oh, all right. I've seen weed before. It's usually in brown, so this must be a cigarette. Let me steal one of his cigarettes. Get back at him. This is one of his special cigarettes.
Yeah, no, SP. Yeah, no. My mother, she drink Heineken. She drinks Coors now, but she would always have the green bottles in the refrigerator, and she would always go get me one of those green sodas out the freezer. And then you would close the door, and you would smell the stuff. Yeah. We were back then. They didn't. Yeah. They didn't do any. They didn't know what they were doing.
Do better. We have
to do better. We have to do better with our children. We absolutely not.
But doing better doesn't mean handing them Coke.
Now, I'm not doing that now.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I don't care. I don't care if that's how they're gonna have a party and have a good time. They're not gonna get it from me.
They definitely.
And I'm gonna tell them not to go get it.
Exactly. Don't. This is just you're not supposed to do this. Please don't do this because this is not the same.
This one is the good one.
Yes.
This one's the bad one.
And
let's stay on this one.
Let's stay on this one. Like let's do this. This will not, steer you wrong. Now, if you at least and you bring your own, don't take it for somebody else that you don't know.
I'll give him some gummies. Yeah, like that. That's fine. But like Coke, I think that we there's a line, and there's
a line of like there's a line that's not being crossed, and we're not doing that.
See, look at Trey Jones. He said, "My dad gave me moonshine once." I one of my like childhood friends told me that his dad gave him wine because like he had like a cut, and he was a single dad, and he had a cut, and he was like he wanted him to do the stitching on the cut. Gave him some wine. He was like, "You got to have your hand steady."
See,
I think he was only like 10 years old. So,
he wanted him to do the stitching up the stitch.
Only 10 years old. Give him some wine. So the Bagwell business starts to struggle and the finances aren't good. Steve thought that he had enough money to live the rest of his life comfortably. That wasn't the case, and Marcus was at home when with his parents when things got really tough. Judy tried to leave one night, and Steve told her to not get in one of his cars. So we get
like, you can leave, but you're not taking my car.
Steve questions her and pulls out a gun on her. Marcus tells him he won't shoot unless he has to, as Marcus steps in basically to save his mom and has a gun of his own, and basically they have like a standoff with the guns. Steve runs and gets his gun off the refrigerator, and we have the standoff, and Marcus fires first. The first shot would have killed Steve, but he got his hand in the way. Marcus shot 4 more times. What the fuck?
I was like, but you're lucky not to be in jail, son. Like,
Steve couldn't believe it was happening. Steve had to get a bone graft from his hip to repair his arm and hand from the gunshot. It took some time, 3 to 4 months, and they talked it out. Steve told Marcus that he was 100% right in what he did, as he was just protecting his mother. Mm-hmm. And he says that we had a rough couple of years after that, but have been best friends ever since. What the fuck?
Right.
It was like we went from shooting geese to shooting each other that quick.
And not only that, you shot one.
And with the cocaine interlude.
Had to be because it's like, okay, yeah, you're trying to protect your mother, and I get all of that. But bro, you shot your dad 4 times. 4 times. And they connected, at least 2 of them. You could be in jail. Like, Like, we're like, you're lucky you didn't go to jail. Like, and they weren't friends. He was like, we didn't talk for a long time, and then I told him that it was all my fault. Well, you gave them the gun, yes, but I don't think you told him to use said guns.
Yeah, exactly. There's protecting his mother, and then they're shooting your father.
Right.
I think that there was somewhere in between that he could have landed on.
Right. So I'm like, yeah.
Marcus moves out of the house and marries Tanya. He takes a job as a stripper.
The mini jobs is
and-
dead well.
when they move and they get their own apartment together where they're living out, and Buff meets Missy Hyatt. And I was like, the OG ring rat is here.
Look at her.
OG wrestling groupie is here. Missy Hyatt introduces herself as the first lady of professional wrestling, and with all due respect,
That's not true, but okay.
yeah, I was like, that's probably Miss Elizabeth or Sherry. I don't know. But
That's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to like, damper her intro. But I was like, y'all should have corrected her, but whatever.
first diva of wrestling, maybe. Missy
Right, I would like
talks
to say
about
that, yes.
talks about her career in WCW and how her claim to fame, besides being a manager, was being the first female announcer. Marcus told Missy that his brother wanted to be a wrestler. Missy told him that he should be a wrestler, and he thought wrestlers didn't make any money. She lets him know that their top guys were making $100,000 a year. They're making a whole lot more now. Marcus went to go
We'd hope
train.
so.
Well, no, they are. No, they are. I mean, we've
Okay.
seen what Okada's making. We talked about what Okada was making.
I mean, that's different. Okada is Okada.
Marcus went to go train while Tanya
What is
worked
Otis
and
making?
supported him.
Like,
Huh?
he's not making what Okada. What Otis make?
He's probably making that. The deal was the deal between Tanya and Marcus was that she would support him, and once Marcus made it, he would support her. She hated it and cried every night, but Marcus knew it would pay off for him. We see footage of Marcus in his old indie days. He was in the GWF as the handsome stranger. Missy was impressed with how Marcus was developing after only 3 months, and Missy gave the tape to Jim Barnett, who was the booker and the promoter at the time. They got Marcus a job in WCW. And then we meet one of our old favorites, Uncle Two Colt Scorpio is here. He was the former tag team partner of Marcus Alexander Bagwell. Scorpio was surprised at how well Marcus could keep up with him. They were the tag team of the year and won the WCW tag team titles. The women loved Marcus, and he wasn't ready for women throwing themselves at him. And he admits that he cheated on Tanya. Big surprise. She was obviously extremely hurt, and she could not forgive him, so the marriage had to end. Bagwell has the idea that he needs a better body, so he starts to talk about getting calf implants with Slick Johnson, and I was like, oh my god! If you are a fan of HBO's Entourage, they did a whole episode where Johnny Drama wanted to get calf implants and was trying to convince Vince to give him the money for the calf implants. It lasted like 2-3 episodes, and it seems like it's all based on Buff Bagwell now.
It has to be. It has to be, because like that's what I was like, wait, who wants to get calf implant? I was like, that reminds me of Entourage. I was like, wait, didn't he want to cut calf implants? But John told him no. Like, he was like, no, I'm not giving you no money to do that stupidness. Like, where you going? You don't even have the body. Like, your body ain't like, you want at least get muscles before you want to put calves in.
Proportionate, you know. So he gets the calf implants, and he starts to have leg pain, and Slick would carry Bagwell on his back, and it just so happened that his body rejected the calf implants. He went to the hospital and was told the implants had to come out, and he would have to cut his legs off. And
he actually contemplated, was like, cut my legs off or keep the calves. Like, bro, get them out. Like, are you kidding me? You can't walk. Someone had to help you to the bathroom.
He said that he still has the calves implants in a box at home.
Ew.
That's disgusting.
It is.
So we get a third team for Bagwell, and this one is the American Mouse, American Mouse, American Mouse, American Mouse, American Mouse,
It's so
American Mouse,
90s and so
American
cheesy.
Mouse,
It just
American Mouse.
sounds like Baywatch, like on like steroids, like cheesy Baywatch foolishness though.
Hey, Scotty Riggs looks good. He
He
is our next
does.
talking head. Riggs is rocking the full gray beard and hair. The talking heads sing the catchy American Males theme song. We also hear from Eric Bischoff, this bitter old grift. He says that he is pissed. They mentioned it, as now he will have that song stuck in his head all day.
Well, y'all
Bischoff Bischoff says that they use the American males to appeal to the women and try to draw them into watching. Bagwell met his second wife, Erica, at this point, but that didn't last long. Then he meets his third wife,
I didn't even
Judy.
really like say much about
They
her. I was
glossed
like,
over her, exactly like how I
over her.
described.
Because I was like, did I miss something? I was like, because I was watching, I was like, well, maybe I was distracted by something with work, and I was like, let me rewind it back. No, they just named her, and then they went to the third wife. Hey, I'm Buff Bagwell's third wife. What? Maybe she said no and she didn't want to be interviewed. Who knows?
Yeah,
Like,
they probably called her and she said no. So yeah, the third wife, her name is Judy. So now we have Judy Bagwell, the wife, and Judy Bagwell, the mother. I can never do that. I would never. I can never date
How
or
about-
marry a woman that has the same name as my mother. I think that's too weird.
it's creepy-ish. Some kind of no.
I can
Yeah.
only imagine what other people would think. So we meet Judy.
With your mom, dog? Like, no. She just happened to have. You should like that. Sounds nasty.
Sounds like you were looking for it.
Right.
We meet Judy and she says Marcus put her on top, but laughs and says that Mark always comes first. Then we get to the NWO, folks, and Bischoff talks about the group and how they were so cool that the fans cheered them. Kevin Nash asked Bagwell to be a part of the NWO, says Marcus, and Marcus didn't have to think twice. He was like, he didn't even think about talking to Scotty. Scotty says that he didn't want to be a dick or block Bagwell, so he said it was cool, but he was like, damn, I wanted to be a part of the NWO as well.
Yeah.
But in the end, he says, let's make it work for you, brother. And Bagwell turns on him and is now part of the NWO. He marvels at being in the ring with the talent in the NWO, and it changed his career forever as Buff Bagwell is born. Buff is bored, and Scorpio says that Buff is the kind of guy he wants to beat their ass. Tanya thought that they may get back together, but once she saw Buff, she knew that it was all over. He was engrossed in the character. Buff then talks about, and I love how he just starts talking very I would just say proper white when he talked about his his father's business, when he talked about his sporting career, and then when he started explaining this after the NWO's party, he's like, yeah, so I hired my mother as my personal assistant. Personal assistant and secretary. Slick,
I put all the family on the payroll, and everyone was there.
I was like, but I fucks with you for that though, because that's some Eminem D12 shit. That's I'm gonna put on the whole family, the whole.
You're gonna drive me to the airport. You're gonna do this.
Black rapper in the '90s type shit.
Yep.
Respect it, but this whole role for his mother kind of gets weird very quickly. As Slick has another story for us. Slick says that he walks into their home and he sees Judy the mom. With
you have to say Judy the mom too.
with Buff completely butt-ass naked, bent over in front of her, and she has the foreskin of his penis pulled back, so she is shaving his balls in the tub. When Slick arrives and comes to the door, the bathroom door that is completely wide open, they both just smile at Slick, and he says that Judy says, "Oh, hey Slick, how you doing? Everything all right?" He says, "No, you are a sick people." Judy was going to help Mark out any way she can, apparently, he
I
says.
mean, you want to help your child anyway. I will not do that.
I would not.
And I have sons. And yeah, no, not do that.
Bagwell also gets into movies, straight to video movies,
And not
action
even
movies.
DVDs. This is
Bishop
straight
says
to VHS.
he never watched the movies and doesn't know how he missed them. We jump to Rick Steiner versus Buff Bagwell on the WCW Thunder, where Marcus bruises his spinal cord, and we see the clip of his
I remember that.
Yeah, me too.
I remember this.
Rick slips off trying to do the bulldog, and Buff smacks his forehead off of Steiner's back, and it does like a whiplash effect, and he's paralyzed. Judy, the wife, says that she was watching at a family friend's house, and she knew something wasn't right. And the next 3 hours, Marcus was getting MRIs and CAT scans and was told to sit up by his doctor. He bruised the spinal cord. Apparently, the swelling tricks your body into thinking you are paralyzed. Once the swelling goes down, that goes away. And I'm like, okay.
Right.
He says that he did have 2 plates and 8 screws to repair his broken neck, but no, he wasn't paralyzed. So thankful for that. Sheesh. Buff says that he was back on TV in 3 months. The fans were behind him. And from that mark until the 10-month mark, he was Scott Steiner's manager. And well, Buff turned to drugs to pick him up and take him down and relax his muscles as he was basically doing the wars of going on the road and being the manager for Scott Steiner. Slick says that he was out partying with wrestlers while Bagwell was passed out in his hotel room. Slick and Judy would make up excuses to cover for Bagwell constantly. Judy Bagwell gets brought onto TV next, which is one of the most infamous bad WCW gimmicks of all time. Is Judy Bagwell and the Judy Bagwell on a forklift match. Did you have any memories of this, and what did you know about it before watching this episode here?
I didn't know. I just knew that his mom was involved and she was there, and it was a bad thing. I was like, why is his mom there? It's like doing too much. Is like, this is where you like, okay, this is where the start of the downfall happens. Is like, this is stupid. I mean, it's great to work with your mom, great, yes, but it's just like, it's stupid.
Bischoff laughs and says that they made her a star. Buff says that Rick loved his mom and they got along. Judy loved performing, and Marcus says that she enjoyed working with his mom, but it's still hard working with family.
Yeah.
Bischoff doesn't regret letting her get involved, but says that it went too long and they pushed with her too much. We get a brief mention of the Judy Bagwell on a forklift matchup, like I mentioned earlier. WCW goes under and is brought by WWE and Vince McMahon. They played the clip from the WCW Nitro Simulcast when Vince was going through all the names of WCW stars to get a reaction, and Bagwell gets a big reaction. He makes the cut when they decide to bring WCW back. Before getting on TV, though, we hear now this is a story I never knew. I knew what happened with him in WWE and the Booker T match not going well. I did not know the full story. And I heard that there was like something that happened that day before the show that is the reason why he got fired. But I never heard the full story, especially not from Bagwell. So we hear it before getting on TV. There's a big training session headed up, and Marcus goes there where Shane Helms is also there. They get into a verbal confrontation, and Bagwell tells him to drop things or he will slap his teeth down his throat. They insult each other. Then Helms tells him to take his best shot, and Marcus brags about unleashing the Bagwell slap. And he says that it was taught to him by his father, and it was a way to show who was in control of things. Helms got
Yeah.
knocked on his ass, but he crawled over where he had a frozen water bottle near him, and he blasted Bagwell from behind in the back of the head. Marcus is bleeding everywhere, but doesn't tell anyone. He gets his own doctor to fix it and has 23 staples in his head and uses a black Sharpie to cover over them to match his hair so nobody could tell, so he could wrestle Booker T that night. That was the infamous WCW closing Raw angle where the crowd dumped all over the matchup. You
Yep.
can even hear the fans chanting, "This match sucks." Bagwell thought that they had a good match and was floored when he was told that it was a bad match. He said that it wasn't a barn burner, but they didn't do anything wrong. He was then fired and he went from main event to fired in 7 days. He says, "What if?" "What if I had a horrible match? So what?" He says, "I'm Buff Bagwell. Why would you get fired over a bad match?" He was like, "I spent the better part of 20 years in WCW. Why doesn't any of that work count for anything?"
Well, friend, you're at a different company, and if they don't see it and you do something bad, what they're like, okay, yeah, we're not doing this anymore. That's just what it was, friend. But yeah, just to hear the other story, to see probably added on top of that, probably made it like seal in the coffin.
Yeah, because that's the real reason. It's the
Yeah,
fight.
it's the
It's the
fight.
fight. If you just have a bad matchup and you don't have that fight, they probably be like, "All right, we're not going to
Well,
put you in that position
right.
anymore. We're going to take you down the card for a little bit," because they only obtained a certain amount of contracts, and there was only a certain amount of guys that were seen as stars that they got. They got Booker T, they got DDP. Everybody else was not a star. Buff got a big reaction. Buff was a upper mid-carder to mid-carder on the WCW
Yeah.
roster, but he had been on TV for the better
So
part of
long,
nearly
yeah.
10 years for them, to the point that he was very well known, and you could have used him in a prominent position, even in the
Yep.
mid-card during the whole invasion angle. But
Mhm.
it's the fight. It's the fight. If you
The
didn't
fight
get in
that
the
didn't
fight,
yeah.
then they probably would have forgave it. And Shane Helms had a lot more people on the WWF roster that were going to back him up. He had the Hardys at that time. Everybody who was cool with the Hardys, probably Edge and Christian, Dudley's,
Yeah.
all these guys are all backing up Shane Helms, and no one's backing up Buff Bagwell, but maybe like a guy from
And you
WCW.
did hit him first, like you did
Yeah.
it. So it's like
Yeah.
it's your fault. Like if you didn't hit him first and they hit him and he hit you, maybe the outcome would have been different. Or maybe maybe you wouldn't have been fired, and maybe they just would have gave him like a warning, like, "Hey guys, like don't do this, blah 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 blah." But unfortunately, that happened.
It does. It does happen. It does happen. We got the Wrestling Down show says, I also heard in WWE backstage they put stuff in his hat to give the WCW guys a hard time. Yeah, there was definitely some hazing going on, especially in those days. They didn't want those WCW
There
guys
were
there.
guys there. No, they definitely didn't. So
And Slick even backs up the what you said, that Buff slapped Shane first, and if Shane had thrown the first blow, he likely would have been fired. The famous Bagwell slap cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars, and crushing. Buff says that he was going to be one of the biggest stars of all time, and instead he just had a good run. So he dealt with it by doing drugs and drinking. Bagwell works independent shows for XWF, WWA, WMA, and battles his addiction. He tries to get clean, but he is out of it one day while he's driving his Jeep, and he completely wrecks it. He had a withdrawal seizure, apparently, which apparently happens when your body isn't used to being clean after he went to rehab. Judy, his wife, says that the plate in his neck actually saved his life in this wreck.
right.
As if it was not there, he would have been dead from the force of the blow. He had swelling in his face and his neck. We see a photo here of Bagwell in the hospital on a
Crazy.
ventilator, and he looked absolutely awful. Bagwell had bills that were due and made a deal to get paid $25,000 to do some show called Gigolos. And Tuco Scorpio had the best response to this. He said, "How the fuck he going to want to shove Nicole gigolos when he only got a dick this big?"
First of all, I was like, Scorpio, why how would you know?
As Sat E. Yankee has established, when you wrestle, you change in the same locker room. So
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Sat established that, and I can affirm from being playing on basketball team. Unfortunately,
That's
that
how it goes. Okay.
um
Got it.
but we see footage from the show. Judy, the wife, says Buff was told it would be an appearance and he was going to mentor the guys, and that all changed when he got there and he said, "Are you shitting me?" So we get the whole gigolo story. Marcus calls Judy the wife and says that it was more than he thought, and confesses it ended up being like softcore porn. She wanted to die when he broke the news to her, as it broke her heart. She knew that it was bad. Marcus remembers his scene, and he remembers that he couldn't get zero blood to his penis. So he got up close and acted like he was having sex. He apologized at the bar to the producer and other guys on the show for not being able to have sex. And he is floored when when the producer responds, "You're not supposed to." Bub says, "Nobody told me, bro." He says, "It's sad what a human will do when you are broke." At some point, Buff ends up on a website called Cowboys for Angels, and it was a place where women could hire men for a week or a weekend for $10,000 or more. He knows it sounds crazy, but he needed money. Judy, the wife, says that it's crazy, and the first woman fell in love with Marcus immediately.
Yep. And
He
so
would
did he.
He fell in love with the money. He did. He would live with her for a week to get the money, and he started to fall for the woman as well. Marcus says that he never saw Judy when she worked and when he was home, and the transition to the woman with the money was easy. Marcus calls Judy and tells her that he has fallen in love and wants to leave. Judy says the woman is not in Marcus's life anymore, and Marcus says that he would have stayed with Judy if he had to do it all over again. The drug use continues, and it leads to multiple DUIs and another car wreck, and he isn't sure how he didn't kill himself, or more importantly, someone else.
Yeah, that's the part where you're like, okay, you really got to get yourself together, because now you're out of control. Like one
Yeah,
time, two,
and he talks
like
about the car wreck where he drove into like a DMV or something,
the
drove a
brick wall.
wall.
He's like, yeah, he said,
The
I'm
bus
surprised
station, actually, bus
bus station.
station.
Yes. He's like, I'm surprised I didn't kill anybody. It's just like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, so
And then the worst is yet to come, as Judy Bagwell, the mom, has dementia now. The family faces their biggest challenge as she is facing dementia's disease. Judy fell into a state where she could not wake up, and Steve spent over an hour trying to get her to wake up. Judy passes away, and Steve breaks down a bit, and she knows that Judy was one of the greatest women he ever knew. Marcus says everyone says that their mom is the best, but he knows his mom was the best. The death of Judy was a wake-up call for Marcus, though, as he stayed with his niece, and she told him that he had to get sober or the family would leave him. They brought in Diamond Dallas Page, and Marcus found his path to recovery. Tanya says that she can know now that she sees the old Marcus there. There's no buff at all, and she believes this is going to stick this time. Marcus says that Darkseid called him about doing his story, and Scotty Reyes was brought up about reaching out to him. Scotty had been living in his car for the last 6 to 8 weeks as he was trying to help his ill mother and lost his home. Scotty says that he was close to putting a gun to his chest, and Marcus told him to get to him and DDP, and he agreed, and says that he would not be here today if it wasn't for Marcus reaching out. And that was amazing. If you know anything about Marcus Bagwell, a couple of years ago, he had a lot of issues and a lot of trouble. So to know that he got himself clean and then decided to help one of his old tag team partners, that's an amazing turnaround.
I was like, just look at him. I was like, he looks amazing for like going through a whole heap of shit and drugs everything. And for him to go and like lend her hand is like, no, I have to help out my fellow brother that's down and out. I think that's where some of the wrestlers forget. Like you can, if you call somebody, they most likely will say, okay, come on, let me help you. Or like, let me get you somebody else that can help you.
It's a brotherhood. It's a family.
It's a brotherhood, right? It's a family, and they have to understand like you might be feeling alone right now, but somebody else has been where you are, and they can help you out.
Tanya says that she is still in love with Marcus, and she said that shit with her chest. She says she will always love him.
Word.
And I was like,
you don't want him right now? I'm like, but yeah,
she thinks he's a good guy genuinely, and people have misjudged him. Judy, the wife, says that Marcus has good people supporting him, and he knows that, and he has a wonderful girl with him, and we see pictures with his new woman in his life, and she wants that to work out, and she wants him to be happy. Bischoff notes that Marcus is a lovable guy, and that's why his ex-wives still love him, and that he loves them. And Steve says that he is most proud of Marcus getting sober and staying sober. And Marcus says that he wants to keep his sobriety number one and wants to get back in the ring number two. Tanya says that she is rooting for him to get back into the ring. And that is how we end this episode of Dark Side of the Ring. And this was one of the great kind of success stories of recovery, of turning your life around from all the craziness he has. But this one right here was an all-timer. Dark Side episode.
I totally agree with you. Like after the episode, I was like, wow, this is a good episode. Like down and out, recover, back up, and you've done well. You're lending a hand. It's like a good all-around story. You saw the dark side of everything from him.
Absolutely. And the wild stories with his parents and with Slick Johnson,
oh my God.
from coke to getting your balls shaved to the gun standoff, shooting geese. Like, dude, like he's had a wild life. You could make a movie out of Buff Bagwell's life.
You definitely could. Easy. I'd go watch it.
Sound off in the live chat. Last call for super chat donations. Come on, guys. We talked about the first 2 episodes of season 5. Throw us one super chat donation. It could be $1 or $2. We appreciate the love and the support. But final call for that, and let us know your out of 10. What did you give this episode? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle. MVP and LVP for me and Krssi for Buff and the Bagwell season 5 episode 2. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle in 3, 2, 1. Thumbs up across the board from both of us. Out of 10, what did you give this episode, Krssi?
8.5.
I'm going to go with a 9 out of 10. This was a 9.
9 might have been, okay, I changed 9. I thought 9 might have been too high, but yeah, okay, 9. It was a great episode, like from beginning to end. Okay, 9. Yeah, 9. I was down.
This did not disappoint. Like
no.
Wrestling Lowdown show, we've seen you in plenty of chats where we review shows. We definitely agree with you. This is one of my favorite ones as far as like just the wild stories. Slick Johnson was an all-timer talking head. Buff Bagwell, and seeing his whole turnaround, seeing that he's helped Scotty Riggs get the recovery, like that's just so great and completely changed my opinion of Buff Bagwell. That's what you get from the most like great Dark Side of the Ring episodes here, especially when you have the person telling their own story.
I love that he got to tell his own story, and it was great.
Your MVP for this episode?
What's the friend's name?
Slick Johnson. Yes, Slick Johnson is MVP for me.
Slick Johnson. Especially the story that he's told about seeing his mom and Buff together, and I was like, MVP easy.
I'm gonna go co-MVP Slick Johnson and Buff himself for the whole turnaround of his life. Of his life, I gotta give him that.
Okay, that's fair.
LVP for this episode, I'm gonna have to agree with
Bishop,
because I thought that he would add more to the episode. It didn't really feel like he added much.
They didn't even really need him, to be honest.
No, you didn't.
Like you just had him because he worked at WCW, really, but everyone else played a part. You really didn't do much. Like you came and said, "Oh my God, I hated that song," and then talk about how you brought his mom in, and that was really it.
he didn't feel necessary to the story at all. If it wasn't for his belligerent rants during a WrestleMania weekend, I would have said Rick Steiner should have been on one of the talking heads instead of Bischoff. But he did make some weird comments. So, anywho, sound off in the comment section if you're watching this on demand. If you're watching this on demand, we appreciate you for watching it. We get a lot of late reviews on demand for our Dark Side of the Ring reviews. So drop the thumbs up on this video, share this video with all your wrestling fans, friends, and family, and hit the subscribe button for more True Hill Heat content. Me and Krssi will be back with you tomorrow, 11:05 a.m. Eastern Time, the True Hill Heat flagship podcast. But Miss Krssi Love, let the people know where they can follow you until then.
Okay, friends, you can find us here as we do our Dark Side of the Ring reviews here on our True Hill Heat homepage. Join us tomorrow, 11:05 a.m. for the flagship show of True Hill Heat as we discuss everything of this week's wrestling. Tonight, I'll be on Know Your Role as we discuss and review the SmackDown for tonight. So be there on bodyslam.net. And then we do Serving Faces Hills now. So, yes, I'm there. Other than that, you can follow me, Krssi Love _1. True Hill Krssi Love on Twitter, and then my name on Facebook. So, yep, hey, thank you for the super chat.
Follow me on the Twitter machine at True Hill SP3. Follow the gang, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at True Hill Heat. And thank you so much, Wrestling Lowdown Show. We always see you in our live chat for our Dark Side of the Ring reviews. So we appreciate you setting that late super chat here. So we get one on the board. We appreciate the love, man. And definitely show your support, like I said, in the comments section. Let us know what you thought about the first 2 episodes of season 5. Follow the gang, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at True Hill Heat, patreon.com/True Hill Heat. Check out all the great content, AE Ramble, total nonstop ones from last night. Me and Krssi will be back tomorrow, True Hill Heat flagship podcast, when we're joined by Scott E. Wrestling to talk about Mercedes Moné's debut in AEW, Working with Stardom. We're going to talk about it live tomorrow.
Nice.
For Krssi Love, it is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. This has been our Dark Side of the Ring Season 5, Episodes 1 and 2 review. We are signing off until next time.
Laters.